Okay, what we have here are shock absorbers. The white ones are aftermarket shock absorbers that came off of my daughter's 1986 F-150. They have less than 30,000 miles on them. The black shock absorbers came off of my 1998 F-150. They are original equipment shock absorbers with 215,000 miles on them. I'm doing this so you can see the difference in quality in aftermarket and original equipment shock absorbers, because I find the comparison particularly interesting. I'm going to hand the camera to my son, and I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to compress some of these shock absorbers side by side, and they all are going to have a little help expanding again once I bottom them, because they're stiff a little bit, but they don't have the pressure that they should have when I collapse them. Okay, these over here, these are the front shocks off of each truck. So I know this one came off the left side of my truck. I don't remember whether this came off the left or right side of my daughter's truck. The white one is a little stiffer to press down, but it only has less than 30,000 miles on it. This one has 215,000 miles on it. And it's coming back a little bit. I'm going to lay it down. You can watch it expand. Give this a little nudge. And you can watch it expand as well. Now what I didn't realize, because these shocks didn't have any miles on them, I didn't realize what kind of shape they were in until I needed the front end alignment, and the front end man grabbed the bumper of that truck and shook it like a rag doll. And I saw just how weak those shocks had become in less than 30,000 miles. Okay, so there's two front shocks right there. Here's the other two front shocks. Again, the newer one's a little stiffer. Neither one of them's coming back right away. Give it a little nudge. Give that one a little nudge. This is the left side. It has a little spot that's, or right side shock on off of my truck has a little spot that sticks in it. What's interesting here too is how long it takes. This one never does come all the way back to its full height unless you pull it. Now the rear shocks, this is where it becomes a little more interesting, because my truck, my 98, has a camper shell on it. It's had the weight of the camper shell on it for I don't know how long. My daughter's truck only has occasional weight put in the back. Occasionally we carry some firewood in it, so most of the time it's unloaded. They have virtually the same force of compression. You see that 215,000 mile shock is coming back on its own. This one's got to have a little nudge, and neither one of them are as stiff as they ought to be. You can keep watching that one expand for a moment if you want to. It's still expanding. That one's completely done. We'll let that one get done here. And this is the weaker shock, rear shock on my truck. The right side on the right side, front and rear, were both weaker. That pops right back. This one gets stuck, needs a little nudge, and then it comes right back. None of them are leaking oil. None of these shocks are leaking oil. The old ones, the older ones are the newer ones. So that's good. But I find it interesting that aftermarket shocks with less than 30,000 miles on them require only about the same amount of pressure to compress as original equipment shocks with 215,000 miles on them. I didn't realize these were the original equipment shocks till I began to take them off, and I saw something that I found interesting on the new shocks on Ford trucks. The upper cover piece is plastic. I didn't realize that. What tipped me off that these were original equipment was the part number. That F7 signifies 1997. My truck was manufactured in late 97. It's an early 98 model. So that part number, that's a Motorcraft number. You see the Motorcraft label here. That's a Motorcraft part number. And these are the original shocks. The bushing design's a little different. And the front shocks actually were manufactured in 1996. The F6 here indicates the production year, the design year of this shock. It was 1996. Ford continued to use that same shock in the front end of their trucks for a while. And so that's, I find that interesting that and this is what has convinced me. Had the same kind of experience with a couple of GMCs where I went back, I put aftermarket shocks on them, they didn't last. I put genuine AC Delco shocks on them, improved the ride considerably. This is what's convinced me that the best thing you can do in most cases is simply buy the original equipment part rather than an aftermarket part. So that is today's video.